Nicole, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's awesome that we're actually around the campfire this time instead of on the trail.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love
Kind
your
of,
campfire.
thank you. It's kind of nice to actually get a break and just unwind and kind of think back to, the adventures that have been and kind of plan what's gonna happen in the future.
Yeah, you have adventures planned?
I do actually. Looking at going a few more places in Ohio that I want to revisit, and then some new places in Kentucky and Missouri that are planned that I feel like I'm inevitably going to end up at. So may as well get it done.
Cool.
And that's where I know our last conversation, we talked a lot about trying to understand our depression and things that we deal with based off of, not only nature, but also ourselves.
Yes. Yeah, I think depression is just something that comes sometimes and pushing back on it or forcing ourselves to do things that we don't want to do or fighting it just makes it worse.
It does. And, it really feeds to that fear mechanism that we all have incorporated and holds us back from a lot of things.
Fear, yes.
And speaking of, I know you've made some drastic changes in your life. Congratulations on getting married.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I got married and started my first business all in the same year. Like, so
Two
it's
things, two things that are extremely fear based if you really let it get into your head.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been I didn't realize I was doing all these things all at the same time. It just like now I look back and I'm like, hey, that's what I just did. And it's really nice to be able to say that yeah, I've accomplished both of those things.
So tell me about the business. What is it that you got going on?
Yeah, it's called Critter Control. It's bigger on the East Coast actually, but we're trying to bring it to the West Coast where I am. So it's been it has its ups and downs. It's a wildlife removal, so if animals are wrecking your home, then we'll come in and kind of remove the animals and fix up your home.
That's cool. That's one of those things that I personally, to walk down that endeavor, would get really caught up in the stories of what brings the animal to a specific location.
Yeah, that's
But
one of my favorite things actually is hearing the stories.
what's the craziest one that you've heard?
Well, there's some that are like just turkeys are like tormenting our customers in the parking lot, things like that, or deer is stuck in my yard. It's you know, there's just funny ones like that that sometimes come up.
It's actually funny because I recently got to revisit one of my favorite places to go, which is Indian Mound Park down in Ohio. And I sat on the mound out there for probably about a half hour, was meditating, had an experience. And on the way back out, there was this turkey that came darting across the trail. And when he got to the other side of the trail, he spent probably about 2 minutes just running back and forth before finally scurrying off into the woods. And I got the hugest kick out of that because there was actually a little bit of turkey influence on that meditation. So to see that sign, it to me was a very powerful, not only affirmation of what it was I experienced, but it also kind of played a little bit into where I felt myself at the moment. Was kind of scurrying back and forth. I'm wondering if maybe you get any of those kind of moments when you look back at going to help somebody remove an animal where you're like, you know what? That was me in the moment.
Yeah, I do love what is that called when like something physical is a good example?
A good
Forget the word.
manifestation.
Yeah, I love that. I love when, because I really believe how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you can notice in a different part of your life that isn't so stressful, that, maybe you're over rushing something or you're not in the moment, then you're probably also doing that in other parts of your life. So I always love to see good examples of how I can work on myself in other areas. So
That's really cool. The
yeah.
other the other thing that really the other prevalent question that comes to mind is in a business venture like that, why? Why you and why go down that course?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I've been doing coaching since 2020 now, like health and life coaching. I've been a swim coach my entire life, really. Since I was 13, I started coaching. So, and I always have multiple things going on. So, buying a franchise is what I did. Um, it just felt right. Like it felt like, I have a huge team backing me, helping me out through this learning process. And I'm also an owner and a boss. So,
It's cool. And I asked that question because I think about it a lot of the time when I go to a meeting to set up a class. I get asked that question. Why are you even doing this?
yeah.
Because most people don't understand outside of, the typical I put my head down kind of concrete job. And there's such a benefit for it. Not only personally, but also to the community.
Yes. Yeah. For I really felt unfulfilled for so many years, just feeling like there's more to life, there's more that I should be doing. Like, and if you have had a crappy boss in the past and you wish, like, there's such a better way to do things, and now I actually get to be that boss who is treating their employees better than I've been treated, and feeling more fulfilled.
And that's where, I try to convey that exact same sentiment. And a lot of the time we'll book the class and if the person's unsure because they just don't understand, it's that day of class when people show up and you get to talk to them beforehand and kind of gauge where they're at and the reason that they show up. And then they leave and they have this little bit of a moment during class and it just changes the trajectory of where they were at and where they're going. And when you come together with the person you put it together with afterward and they get to see that and experience it, they understand why it is that we do what we do, the choices
Yeah.
that we make, why we step outside of ourselves in such a way that it's so not only, I would say, inspiring for me personally, but it's also one of those things that it inspires and it helps and they take it back with them and they start to grow. And that's where the real gravy gets made behind these turning personal journeys into really rally cries.
Yeah. And for me, like, I've been able to cultivate that. What class are you talking about?
Oh, I'm talking about the meditation classes that I crafted and started actually getting the opportunity to go into communities and share these or go into businesses and walk people through this idea of stepping out of what you know and into the present moment and really exploring yourself. And it opens up such a wide variety of canvases. It's really been a lot of fun to facilitate.
That's awesome. I was literally gonna say, I don't have a class right now, but that's where meditation comes in for me. So that's funny that that's what you were also talking about. Yeah, because for me, there's so many things going on that I'm experiencing stress like I've never experienced it, and meditation has absolutely come into a very important role in my life right now.
It's fun and it's exciting and to see the reactions. But then again, I also get a lot of conversation where it's like, do you write all this stuff, rehearse it, and you just kind of spit it out? But it's so much different than that because it's always something that I kind of stress about throughout the day. I've got to do my meditation in order to center and anchor myself and bring myself into it. But then it's just kind of like free flowing from there. There's so many different things that come into it that really, when people show up, they're open, they're receptive, and it's just based on the moment. And I think that that's one of the most important parts of meditation is the fact that it is based on the moment. Because if you're bringing stress and anxiety with you to your session, you can work through it. You can find a creative solution and understanding to change the dynamic of that relationship. And it's the same thing with if you're just in the moment and you've gone through a hard day or even a good, successful, easy flowing day. You bring that in there and you're able to craft something that's going to celebrate it or help you better understand it.
Yeah, I like what you said about working through it because it's not like a plate that we want to clear off all the anxiety and stress. It's not something we're just moving trying to clear away. Um I think once you get into a comfortable space where you feel safe to bring in something that has been on your mind that's a little bit more difficult. Why am I stressed about this? What's going on? As long as you feel safe to do something like that, it can be really powerful to hold that safe space for yourself to do some research and to understand yourself better.
That word research, that's actually one of the things that I feel has like a double edged sword because we sit in front of a computer and we look up something in order to better understand it. But then when we take that into the idea of exploring meditation and researching our feelings or our thoughts or whatever the case may be, it feels so foreign. Like it feels like this whole new concept that we have no understanding behind how to do. So therefore, we put it off.
Yes, and I think noticing this, noticing that it can be as simple as doing a Google research, like I mentioned before, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're comfortable researching something online, then take that same practice and that same method and bring it into being curious about why you're having this stress and overwhelm and depression.
That's where, it really takes building a practice and being authentic about it. And,
Yes.
actually stepping into the question because you always look for a starting point. When you're on a trail, you always begin at the trailhead. You look for that marker or that map to kind of build an understanding of what it is that the objective is and how we're going to get there. But when it comes to the mental arena, you don't have that luxury. So you've got to craft that all for yourself. And that's where the journey really begins is that question of why. Why is it that I want to go through and put myself in this space where I'm going to be vulnerable? I'm going to have to do this extra work that may be difficult, and I probably don't even know how to go about doing it. And when you find that answer inside, you allow yourself to be true and authentic with yourself. That's where you start building the trailhead on a series of concrete blocks that, even though they may move to the left or the right as you walk, they're always going to be there. And you're always going to have a centering and anchoring point.
Mm, yes. Yeah, that's really important to remember because so often our thoughts can feel like out of control or and that's okay. Like our brain is meant to wander and think of different things, but sometimes it can feel like it's getting in the way of what we're trying to do on a day to day because we're like our thoughts are like, "Oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, I need to do that." And having that center and anchoring point is really important.
Well, let's bring that back into the concrete world because we talk about it on such a broad scale. Obviously going and jumping into a franchise or a career, owning a business of critter removal, there's a lot of fear behind that because you don't just walk down the street and say, okay, I guarantee this area is going to be a hot spot and I'm going to find success here. I'm sure it's, at different stages, you're in a position where you've got to kind of just let things come to you. So you have to trust in the process.
Yes, that is very much where I'm at right now because it's not like something where I can make cold calls or something. Like I'm waiting for people to call in to me. I can, of course, reach out to businesses and things like other businesses and things like that. There are things to do, but sometimes you do just have to sit back and be able to answer that call when it comes. Yeah.
It's really about just embracing the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Allowing the environment to grow around you. That's where I feel like a lot of people get stuck. A lot of people that I engage with in these classes, they feel like they're stuck because they want to push everything forward. When sometimes it's just about allowing yourself that space to kind of sit back and observe the flow. And when something comes down the river that is meant for you, it'll latch itself onto you, and that's where the progress really truly happens.
Yeah. And I think sometimes so I like to talk about depression, and the one reason I like to always be talking about it is because it can be showing its head before you even notice it. Like you can notice small baby examples of, hey, I might be feeling a little bit depressed, and then you can kind of take a step back instead of waiting for it to get bigger because you're not addressing it. Can help. So, if you're on the go, always go, 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 and you don't notice the depression rearing its head, then all of a sudden you're sick and you're in bed, you're forced to be in bed, or you know what I mean? Like if you notice these things when they're small, then it's easier to address.
Actually, I can relate a lot to that now because I'm in this learning curve with trying to manage my diabetes. And with the low blood sugars that come on, they can come out of nowhere. And sometimes you feel them happen. Other times they just smack you in the face because they've been kind of creeping down and you don't feel the symptoms. And to me, that's one of those things of life. I've learned how to manage that in the realm of depression. I've learned how to manage that through the highs and lows of walking through life. And now it's bringing that knowledge and that experience into this new area, which does kind of feel at times very vulnerable and very unsteady. But it's looking back at, again, the footsteps that we've walked through life and how they prepare us for these new situations that we encounter.
Hmm.
Depression at times when it hits us, we look at it with that sense of uneasiness and that I just want to get through this as fast as I possibly can. I want to find the gratification that's going to help me knock it down, but it doesn't always work that way. A lot of the times in, this battle, it's I got to pop 4 or 5 glucose tablets and just let that work its way into the system and bring me back up. So it all works the same. It's just finding a context that we can understand.
Yes, I like that. There's a reason for every season. I mean, how often do you feel like people are really paying attention to the food we're eating? Just as one example, like when are we actually like eating a raisin, one raisin, and really experiencing how it tastes and the texture and um Usually we're doing a whole handful of raisins at a time. So that's when we kind of slow down and really feel every little piece. There's a good and a bad way, a good and I quote bad, because the bad is there too. The anxiety and the depression is that bad I'm talking about. So when we slow down and we notice our thoughts of, um, that aren't, you know, um, yeah, when we slow down, we see the bad and the good, but it's just about living with both, yin and
It's about,
yang.
yeah, it's about really taking the time to get curious and
Yes.
understand that relationship. Whatever the term or label or whatever word you want to incorporate there, it's about understanding that it's a part of you. Depression is a part of you. It's going to come, it's going to go. And learning how to take control of it and hold your voice at the forefront is how we manage that. And that's how you find balance in that relationship, because those things can easily take over and become your voice and show you that there's comfort in allowing it to speak for you. But the autonomy comes again when you research, when you look inward, and you find the vocabulary and the voice that is truly you. That's where you build the strength to, again, hold that, whatever term may be, and allow it to be a part of your life, but still navigate on your own.
Yes, yes. The last few days I've actually been experiencing a bit of depression, and it's looked like I'm being really hard on myself, feeling like I haven't been doing enough. And instead of like catering to those thoughts of like I haven't done enough and go and do as much as I can to try and cater to those thoughts, I've said, you know what, Nicole? I need to rest right now. I need to take a break right now because I'm being too hard on myself. And depression can show up in so many ways just like that.
Yeah, it can. And, again, it's about allowing that grace and the learning process, literally, because you have to learn how to navigate these things. You got to understand them.
Yes, yeah. I think sometimes we want to understand, and then also there's sometimes where we can just allow it to be and just to be there, and we don't have to understand. There's multiple there's a reason for every season is the same thing of like sometimes we can dive into understanding it and sometimes it can just be there and we can just say hello as like a passing thought.
Yeah, we can do that. And then also, I think another natural reaction is to try to power our way through it. Because
Mm,
whether we understand it or we don't understand it, these things come up sometimes in very inconvenient situations. And we kind of try to take it on the chin without allowing that grace. We get hard on ourselves. We put our head down and we just try to power through. We don't think about the long term effects of it. If we just slowed down and sit down and dealt with the situation in that very moment, like a great example is, as I mentioned, trying to learn and navigate my way through managing this diabetes thing. When I got out on the trail at Indian Mound Reserve, probably about 15, 20 minutes into it, and at the start I was great, but about 15, 20 minutes to it, my sensors started going off that my sugar was dropping ridiculous. And I could have just powered through it and dealt with whatever, the outcome may have been of that. But instead, it was a matter of saying, okay, this is where I'm at. It's frustrating, it's annoying, but it's cool. I'm going to go ahead and tend to it now. And because I tended to it in that moment, it left the rest of the hike and the adventure to be enjoyable instead of the constant stress and the aggravation of, the dropping sugar and all those other things that could have came with it. And it's just a matter of looking back at where you've been and realizing that, hey, yeah, I had other situations in my life that came up that I stopped and I tended to what it was. and then I got to enjoy things, and I can remind myself that I can still do that now.
Yeah, that's a great example. I what I like about that example is that yeah, you're noticing your sugar dropping and you're able to actually take care of it. With me and noticing that I'm being so hard on myself in business, it's definitely a need to take a break because if I'm being so hard on myself and overcritical, then nothing is going to get wrong. I'm going to feel like everything I'm doing is incorrect and it's going to spiral into an even bigger more things to get done that maybe weren't necessary because I'm being too hard on myself. So sometimes it feels like we can't step away in my example, but that's that's sometimes the thing that you feel you can't do is sometimes um like if I wait too long to step away, then potentially you get sick and other things come up, and when really you could have just taken one break before you went on that hike. um I like that
I
as a
love that.
yeah.
I love that analogy because I think to where I'm at now with this, and it's a situation that had I gone back and actually been mindful of all the signs before the actual finding out, it probably would have prevented some of the traumas and things that I'm dealing with now. And that's, gets back to the idea of dealing with and really learning to understand your body as well as the cues that are around you. And again, showing yourself the grace and that space to address them when they come up as opposed to allowing them to just linger until inevitably you get to a point where it's going to rear its ugly head and it's going to show you what's going on in a difficult way, which brings up new challenges that you have to deal with.
Mhm.
And that's not to say that it's a negative thing, because when you get to that point you've got to deal with it regardless, and you learn from it and you just make it a part of the journey.
Yes, I love that. I think, we're really talking about meditation here. I love it, like um with meditation, I think the practice of it, continuing to bring your mind back to the present moment and feel the sensations you're feeling in the moment. It can be scary because sometimes they're not positive, but life is not always positive, and to be able to sit with the negative is a practice worthy of our time, because there's gonna be negative things coming up in our life, and if we can practice sitting with them, just like you're sitting with like a pile of wood or something, like if that was the negativity, just sitting with it and being like, that's okay, there's no action needed, I don't need to put a log on the fire, I don't need to cut them up, or I don't need to um if a negative thought is the wood, then I don't need to cater to that negative thought. I don't need to allow it to have my attention. I can continue on my way and it can still be there, and we can still work in the way that I want to.
And as I'm listening, I'm thinking about, it always brings you to a fork in the road. Sometimes we end up making the wrong choice, we go down the wrong fork. It doesn't mean that all is bad. You still have those skills and those tools to either blaze a trail back to the other side or follow it back. And regardless of the fact of which way you go, when you make those wrong choices, there's an opportunity to learn. So if you take that frame of mind, it helps you to remove the judgment of, man,
That's
I made
great.
this decision. I must be a horrible person, or, whatever other context you want to throw in there. And it gives you an opportunity to look at the self talk that you're using, even.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. with me doing this franchise, I've been all in. And if it doesn't work, then I could potentially go bankrupt. I could really be in trouble if I don't make this work, but it still isn't going to get to call the shots on what I'm doing. I'm taking it at the pace that I want to go, and even if worst case scenario ends up happening, you still want to be doing it your way, and life is it's everything is still going to be okay even if that worst case scenario happens.
I think that's actually, as the fire's burning down, a beautiful place to leave today's conversation. Is you've got to just experience it, let yourself follow the flow, and if things do turn out to go haywire, you can always find a new way. It's
Yes.
it's not about getting stuck in the situation. It's about reminding yourself that, hey, this is where I'm at. I can pull myself whichever way I decide.
Yes.
So before I let you go, though, I know you got to jump here in a minute. So remind people how they can get in touch with you, work with you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, my name is Nicole Harrington, and on all of my platforms, it's Nicole Coaching G. I wanted to make that easy, so my email, everything is Nicole Coaching G. So yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, Nicole, it's beautiful. I love getting the opportunity to catch up with you. So sure, we'll do it again somewhere down the road. Thank you.
I would love that. Very good.